Welcome back, everybody, to Behind the ToolBelt SRC Live April Halls show down here in Frisco, Texas. I'm with my good friend Jeff with Rhino. How the hell are you, Jeff?
Ty, it's good to see you as always. How are you?
Good, man. How about yourself?
Cannot complain. It's
Good.
always good to be on the road every once in a while, right?
It is. It is. I just had a conversation earlier with Chris Hofstra about the same topic, where it's like, I kind of miss it, the controlled chaos and the people that we only get to see when we're on the road and stuff. And it's kind of like, I don't realize how much I miss you guys until I see you guys again.
Yeah.
It's like, but I know something's off, but I can't quite put my finger on it until I get here.
It's kind of like running into a best friend that you haven't seen for like 10 years. Like you just pick right back up.
Mhm.
So I think the on the road family, as we go to shows, like we become family and you get to know everybody. And that's why I love being on the road. And it's just so much fun.
It is fun. And you, like you said, you really get to know people because we're in the hotel together for 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 days. And last year at this particular show, we were all kind of iced in. So we got to see the good, the bad, and the ugly from everybody, because I think some people had to stay a little bit longer, but not just that. Like, it was almost like a big sleepover.
It really was. I remember the last day where they were like, "Hey, we don't have any more rooms just in case you get stuck one more day." I'm like, "Where are we going to stay?" They're like, "We're not sure." So
yes,
it is like a big fraternity. Like it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely fun, and the people, to galvanize those old relationships and then to forge new ones, is what I always find the best, or the most enjoyment that I get out of it, is the networking and the people that we get to meet, and whether new or old faces that we're meeting when we come here. It's that fellowship and the camaraderie. We're all kind of here for the same reason. Try to get our name out there, try to brand ourselves, trying to market ourselves, but more importantly, rekindling those relationships and stuff like that. But I always enjoy, seeing you guys and a handful of other people, Rufo, lead scout. I'm trying to think of some other people we always try to connect with at least one night.
Yeah.
With a group of people. And like you said, it's like we always pick right back up from where we left off. And that's true friendship, I think.
It really is. And then, we start trying to help each other, right? The vendors that are here, you build those relationships. And even though you might not work directly day to day with them, you're always willing to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I really love about this group. And a lot of the guys that are here, we see them at shows, and man, they're so super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you need, if it's an introduction, if it's, meeting somebody specific, like they're willing to help. So it's always a good time.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I asked Chris a question earlier today when he was on the podcast. And one of the things I always take something when I leave these things, whether it was in a personal conversation or speaker that I got to listen to, if I get to sneak away. Has there been a moment, a phrase or a word that somebody used in a sentence that you feel like you're going to take away from here, or maybe even make you better?
I heard one of the speakers, and it is interesting because we see a lot of the same people sometimes,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
And so you want to be intentional in listening and taking things away. I heard somebody say, and I'm a big believer in this: if you accept negativity in your business, then you're held hostage, right? Because if you're going to accept, poor performance, negativity, all of those things, then you're pretty much held hostage by those people. So, we want to at Rhino raise our standard this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're a big believer in, you can't throw bodies at problems. Like, you have to throw excellence at problems. So I think for me, that really like just hit home, where I was like, yeah, like if someone doesn't want to be along on the journey, like it's okay. We can be friends, we can hang out, but at work, this is business.
Yeah.
And we want to be excellent at what we do. We want to raise the standard in the industry. And if you're not aligned with that, we can't let you hold us hostage to it. So that was a big one for me.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. It's kind of along the lines of like, your leadership is only as good as what you tolerate. But yeah, we have a kind of a belief system that either we're going to push you up or we're going to push you out.
Yeah.
Where we work, because we want to work with people that are positive, good, positive, energetic, high performing people. And it's nice when you have an atmosphere like that, where everybody's kind of rowing in the same direction. And that you're so good at your job that Blake has a job today, and Blake's so good at her job when your back's turned that you're going to continue to have a job. And, when you can get everybody working in that same workflow for the same cause, same purpose, and the purpose is to help a contractor out, or whatever line of work that you are in our industry, typically is helping out the contractor. Um, when your purpose is in the right space, good things happen. Magic.
Absolutely.
That's where the magic kind of happens.
Yeah. And once you can build that team that way, it is magical. And look, I'm a big believer. The reason they have an NFL draft every year is to top grade talent, right? So either the talent that you have has to develop, right? Because there's always somebody hungrier, right? That wants your job, that wants your position, that wants what you have. So if you're not continually working on that, then you're going to get top graded over, right? Again, in sports, that's why they have a draft every year. They don't just go with the same guys every single year. And really, the business climate should be the same way. Like, hey, we're glad that you're a part of the team, but your job is not only to serve the team, the customer, but it's to develop yourself. You've got to get better. You cannot stay stagnant, because all the industries that we serve are changing very quickly, and you've got to be learning all the time.
Yeah, no, and that goes almost into any facet of life, right? You gotta continuously grow, continuously stay teachable is probably a big thing for me, is to remain teachable, to remain coachable, and know that I don't know everything. And I've been hearing this a lot, especially this week, is that I don't know what I don't know, right? And as simple as that might be, it's very relevant today, especially for me being in a managerial position, I guess, that we're both kind of in, right? And that's probably sugarcoating it a little bit, but um, we have to remain teachable. We have to want to continue to push ourselves to level up. I recently read a book, actually read it a couple different times, by John Maxwell, and he talks about the law of the lid, right? Like, certain businesses thrive at a higher level than other businesses, and it has to do with the law of the lid, the leadership lid, right? And he talks about the story of the McDonald's brothers. Have you ever heard the story?
Yes.
So they were good business owners, but their lid was very minimum, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, and I wish I did so I could tell the story better. But this gentleman came in, and his lid was much higher, especially when it came to marketing, branding, willing to take a risk.
Yeah.
I was going to say gambling, but I didn't want that taken out of text. But he was willing to take more risk, and his lid was much higher. But that's a perfect example of why they would have only opened up like 1 to maybe 2 restaurants max. But then this gentleman came in, and there's 2 sides to that story, because if you watch the movie, it looks like he kind of tried to rip them off, but if you read the book, it actually sounds like he came in and just took it to a whole nother level, and they benefit from it as well. So like I said, 3 sides to every story, I guess.
Michael Keaton played the guy in the
yes.
movie. I know you're talking
Yes,
about.
yes, that movie. Yes, I think it was called McDonald's.
Yeah. And I really love leveling up. We have a really great leadership team at our company. One of the guys that reads all the time is Michael Benitez. He's our chief experience officer, and him and I have a lot of different experiences, but we try to level each other up, right? We try to give each other different things to look at, different perspectives, because we've come from different places. But our goal is to take that lid and raise it every single day. And we think of like, hey, not what we can't do, but what's possible, right? And we're pushing each other each day to get better. What's possible? Because good isn't good enough for us anymore. And in the industry, like in the trades in general, right, it's gotten more challenging post COVID. It's not as easy, right? So if you're not constantly learning and reading and leveling up, like, we're old guys, like, right?
Yeah.
But we can still learn.
Yeah.
Again, Mike and I bounce ideas off each other. We try to learn. We look at other lenses from each of our perspectives. And at the end of the day, we have a more well-rounded way to go to market
and perspective on things.
Yeah.
And that's a good point that you bring up too, because if you surround yourself around the same like-minded people, now, and we can poke a bunch of holes in that, but what I'm trying to say is different dynamics, different perspectives. Like, we also need to work around people that have different perspective of things, different generational thinking on things too. It's like in our business, in our company, I think predominantly we have there is some older generation. I think there's actually 4 generations of people that work for TC Backer. We have Gen Zs, We have Gen X's, obviously millennials, and I
Mhm.
think there's also some baby boomers, one or two baby boomers that still work for us.
Okay.
So navigating that can be difficult at times, but that's something as leaders that we have to figure out. Um, how to navigate that, what motivates people. But you need that different dynamics of people, because I think we all know, being in sales, that the millennial generation is the largest generation of human beings that we've ever experienced before. So how they want to purchase something, or how they're seeking information, is much different than it would be for a baby boomer.
For sure.
So if we're not keeping up with the times, with whatever business you're in, it could be pesticides, or whatever,
Pest control.
pest control. Yes. That doesn't matter if you're in the website design, marketing, branding, if you're in whatever business, the roofing business, and I've seen roofing businesses that have suffered because that's the way we've always done it attitude. You know what I mean? And that can go into any industry. It doesn't matter if it's roofing conferences, because I think we've recently seen a conference get purchased. And I think, and this is just my opinion, and not good or bad. This is just my observation, is that it didn't pivot soon enough to where our industry was going.
Yeah.
Right. And not that didn't bring a lot of good stuff back in its prime to our industry. And they were the trailblazer, I feel. You know what I mean? But just even with that, and I didn't want to say any names, you may or may not know who I'm speaking of, but that was, and again, that was my perspective, where they didn't pivot where the industry was going. You know what I mean? The younger generation, the technologies, and that, because when I grew up, the roofing industry was partying, drugs, and that was the stigma that most homeowners had of us, because that's where we were. That's where we ended up. That's the only place that would accept us at that time. But the roofing industry has become more of a profession, a professional atmosphere. We have a younger generation of professionals that are coming into our space, a lot of smart people, a lot of money coming in here, private equities coming into our space right now. The technology is exponentially moving forward. The momentum of technology right now is I think we know that we're behind the curve. So it's moving very rapidly right now, opposed to like the HVAC industry,
Yeah.
which you've been in that space, I think, a lot longer than most of us.
Yeah, we've been in that space for a while. We've been in the trades for 16 years now, and it is interesting, right? The roofing space, I still think, is lagging behind from a technology standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
It's, we go to these events and ask them, like, how do you find things in your life? Well, we Google them,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't put their business on Google, right? They
Yeah.
don't represent their business the way that they want. So I do think, as private equity moves into the space like it has in HVAC, one of the things it did was it exposed HVAC companies that didn't have their processes in place, the right people in place, but technology.
Mm-hmm.
Private equity companies don't want to buy companies that don't have systems in place, right? And if you don't have if your website is not, optimized correctly, if you don't have some lead generation strategies, because I tell people in the roofing space, the number one and two things are storms and door knocking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can't build a business plan around storms and door knocking, right?
Yeah.
The weather is the weather, right? And some of the country isn't beneficial to storms. Like, I live in Virginia. There is no storms in Virginia.
Right.
So you have your roof for 18, 20 years, you have to get a new one. So I think one of the things, e-commerce is going to start to be a thing
Mm-hmm.
for roofers, but, I'm hoping the reason we come to these shows is so we can educate people around, like, hey, the rest of the world is, utilizing Google. We need to get you in front of those folks too.
Mm-hmm.
The last challenge with roofers is they want it today,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're like, hey, if this doesn't work today, I'm going to make a change. Well, Google and their algorithms, it takes time, right? So we're looking for the right person, understanding, scale. Like, they're trying to scale their business. It's going to take time, right? It's not, digital shouldn't be like, hey, should I do door knocking or digital? No, it's an and thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Storm chasing or door knocking, both.
Mm-hmm.
TV, radio, billboards, or digital, all the above.
Mm-hmm.
Because look, we are inundated with ads and things and technology and social media. But if you're not there, you're going to miss, right? And what's, by not being there, what's the average roof worth in the United States? 15 to 20-ish
Yeah.
thousand
Sure.
for the average home. Imagine, like, you have thousands of people searching in your local area for roofing contractors and you're not there.
Hmm.
How many hundreds of thousands of dollars a month are you just flushing down the drain?
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. Staying out in front of, that learning curve. I think for a lot of us too, going back to what I said, that's just the way that we've always done it. We've always knocked doors, but I'm a firm believer that you need multiple avenues, whether it's marketing, revenue, it doesn't matter to stay afloat in any business. You should do the and you should market, you should brand, you should knock doors. And however you do the marketing and branding, could be yard signs, could be billboards, could be TV ads, radio ads. Google
Mm-hmm.
obviously is a big one, going back to the generation of most people on how they search for things, and that's through Google or maybe Bing, but Google seems to be the predominant one where you get the search engine optimization, and that takes time. That doesn't happen overnight, but the one key thing that is the consistency. You have to stay consistent and keep doing it, and don't quit 5 minutes before the miracle happens. And SEO, I think anyone who's been around long enough or in business long enough should know that it takes a while for SEOs to actually start to come to fruition, where the money that you're putting in them may not take 3 months, may not take 6 months. It could take 18 months before you actually show up as number one on the very first page.
It takes time. I tell people this, like when you first started installing roofs as a young guy,
Mm-hmm.
were you as good the first time as you were the 100th time? No. So you have to stick with it, right? It takes time. The first month you launch anything, a workout program, financial investments, SEO,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to take time to mature, right? And I think that's the challenge with the roofing industry.
Mm-hmm.
I used to think that the HVAC industry was way, way behind the times
Mm-hmm.
until we got into roofing. I'm like, no, these guys look like Rockefeller
Mm-hmm.
compared to roofers. And we're getting there, right? There's some adopters. Like we brought on some amazing clients in this area, like Belden and K-Post. These are big boys. I mean, you're talking $50 million plus roofers who now understand, like, their kids are in the game, right? And they're like, hey, we got to get in the digital
Mm-hmm.
game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think some of the adopters early on are going to benefit immensely. Not only that, they're going to take on e-commerce. They're going to be super attractive to the private equity that you talked about before. So
Mm-hmm.
there's all kinds of ancillary benefits to being digitally inclined.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, not that we haven't been professionals, but it's becoming more. I guess the professionalism is changing. That canvas is changing of more digital. And especially when it comes to private equity, they want to be able to lift, take a peek under the hood in one area. They don't want to like look through a stack of documents or papers. You know what I mean? It's becoming, like you mentioned several times, a digital world today. And I think it was on stage yesterday. Randy Brothers had everyone raise their hand. Like, who's paperless? And unfortunately, I didn't raise my hand.
Yeah.
Because I'm a little bit old school. I'm predominantly digital.
Are you still faxing stuff over to
No,
customers?
but not quite that bad. Not quite that bad. But I still take notes, and I graduated to the Remarkable because I have years of notebooks, right? But I switched over to Remarkable because now I got one notebook that's a digital notebook
Yeah.
that will actually turn my handwriting into text, and I can email it, convert it into a PDF or whatever. But it's still a form of digital.
Of course.
And not that I can't text quicker than I can write, but I think it's less rude, especially like at a conference or if we're having something. If I'm on my phone like this, you're thinking that I'm texting or I'm Facebook scrolling.
We have kids in meetings all the time. I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, we're taking notes. What are you talking about?
Yes.
I'm like, I would have never even thought about that
Yes.
because Remarkable. And then look at other roofers. How many of them still have sticky notes in their cars?
Yeah.
And you're driving down the road. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, how are you running a multi-million-dollar business
Yeah.
with sticky notes?
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't, not efficiently anymore. You know what I mean? And again, that goes into play, I think, a little bit of that leadership lid, right? Like, if you're not willing to adapt, at least graduate from a day planner from at a glance, right? Yeah, I think everyone knows what at a glance calendar is, right? If you don't, that maybe I'm showing my age here.
We're probably showing our age.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah. So, but I got a stack of them too. I won't throw them away because that's the OG right there in me. But I graduated to the Remarkable shit. I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second, which I tend to do because my age is setting in. But shit. feel like I was on to something good, but I graduated to the Remarkable.
Yeah,
So it didn't look like I was being rude.
of course.
At least I'm writing. I'm on a Zoom call. I'm writing. I got to take notes because I want to hear what you're saying, and I also want to remember what you're saying to me. So I'm taking notes. But it's been the greatest thing that I've ever done because again, I'm not looking for that post-it note. I'm not looking for that notebook. Literally, I would put post-it notes in a notebook for each topic,
Yeah.
so I could get to it quickly. But now I got the Remarkable, which actually syncs to Google. If I
Yep.
want it to sync to Google, send it to my email, attach it to my notes in my phone on my iPhone. But everything, I just about damn near everything that I do is digital form. And I remember early on when we went from At a Glance Day Planner to Google Calendar, like when Google Calendar was becoming popular, like to make just that small little switch, and it was just a little lever that was pulled and made it transparent to everyone else in the company, because I'm holding the day planner hostage, right? Unless they would come over, take a picture of it quick, they wouldn't know what roof was being installed or gutter or siding, when it was going out and all those things. But when we made that little switch to Google Calendar, I remember how rapidly the growth came once it was transparent to everybody. And it's like now there's CRMs, which is like Google Calendar on steroids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, instead of the redundancy, because again, we had Google Calendar, we had Excel spreadsheets, we had QuickBooks. Now we have three different people putting the same information in three different places that don't communicate. Well, then Job Progress came, AccuLinks came about, all of these CRMs came about, and as begrudgingly as it was for me to adopt, a CRM, now I got one person putting the information in one place that shows up everywhere else at whatever layer it needs to show up at, with whatever information that individual needs to see. Whether some people need to see the finances, some people don't need to see the finances. So there's different layers there, right? Based upon, production, administration, financial, those kinds of things. But once we started to adopt those things into our organization, then we're able to open up another location. Now we can see what they're doing over there and they can see what we're doing, or vice versa. So without being able to adopt or adapt to technology, I almost don't know how business is operated like Pepsi Cola, because Pepsi's been around
Forever.
over probably 100 years. Like,
Yeah.
how were they able to? It had to have been very stressful. There had to have been very many boxes of documents stored, in places. I mean, because I can kind of relate to that, but not on that level. But it's amazing how John D. Rockefeller did what he was able to
Yeah.
do, in those times.
Some of the complexities were less, right? So it wasn't as complex, right?
Mhm.
As technology has grown, as consumer bases have grown, the complexities have gotten more, in depth, which has created the need for technology.
Mhm.
So while it would seem like crazy, like how did Pepsi and Coca-Cola like run things 100 years ago? Probably a lot on paper.
Mhm.
It wasn't as complex from a business standpoint, but you're right. Now, like you have organizations of hundreds of people, even smaller companies, 50 people.
Mhm.
You can't have everything in a day planner. Like it's got to be, we've got Salesforce. So, everybody in the company from different levels of the organization can see where they're at, like what they need to do, how they fit in. But without technology, I mean, think about it. How are businesses scaling? They're not, right?
Mhm.
Any roofer can get to $1, $2, $3 million on word of mouth, referrals, door knocking, all those things. But how many roofers get to $3 million and then fail,
Mhm.
right? Because they have no process in place, they have no technology in place, they have no marketing in place, they have no branding like you guys, like no branding in place. Like they got there, which was easy, right? Brass knuckles, like they willed it to happen and it happened. But what the roofing industry is lacking right now is the technology, right? To get to how many people that walk around here are $15 million plus. I would argue that less than 50% of the people walking around here are $15 million or more, and most are 15 or less.
Yeah.
Some of it's got to do with, maybe it's size of area or whatever, but a lot of it is technology, marketing, all of those things digital that they haven't embraced. I mean, I'm telling you, there is a new generation of buyer that are coming, our kids, right? The younger kids, the Blakes of the world.
Mhm.
They would never like you think a 25-year-old's going to answer the door if a 50-year-old man's knocking the door? They are absolutely not going to. I'm not going to. I live in an area where it's highly military. If I happen to mistakenly open the door thinking it was the UPS driver, I'm going to go, hey man, I just got orders. Like we're shipping out in 3 weeks. And then that call's done, right? I know door knocking is effective, but it's not a great business plan. And most people, let's face it, don't want to have their door knocked on. They want to knock on your door digitally. And how do they do that? Google. So they can do all of the things that you can do. I mean, how many doors realistically are people knocking in a day before they're like, I'm done? 50 maybe. And most people hate it. There are some psychos like back in the day that love to knock doors. But let's face it, most people hate it. Or if they're good at it, what do? They leave TC Backer and they start their own company, right? So it's a thing, right? But it's not a scalable part of your business. You can have people knocking on your door 24 hours a day, right? They're knocking, they're getting all the information that they want. They're learning about your company, your heritage, your history, all about in the community, what you do, what your process is, maybe some price ranges, right? And then when that customer gets to your door, like when you show up, they're like, I feel great. Oh, Ty, like I saw you on the website, man. I saw a video that you did. Like, I feel like I know you already. And then when it comes time to close, right? They're a better type of customer because they're less price resistant. They're not like, hey man, I really like you, Ty, but this other guy said he could do it for $3,500 less. They're like, I've already done my research. I feel good about you guys. I feel good about your process. I've seen your videos. Sign me up, right? So I think that's what roofers sometimes miss as well. It's not necessarily just about people coming to your website. It's about doing pre-conversions on them. So when they get there, like when the guy came out to my house when we needed a roof 2 years ago, I watched his videos. I watched his before and after process. I saw some testimonial videos. I felt like I knew the dude when he showed up. So when he started talking about some of the things on the website, I'm like, yeah, I saw that. I saw that person. I was like, man, I love you. Like, how much does it cost? He's like, X. I'm like, sounds good to me.
You're so right. So true. So true, because that's one of our biggest forms of marketing is social media, social commerce, right? And whether people know it or not, you should, if you don't have a social media presence, but a social media reputation.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have one, you should build one, and not just you personally, but your team should be posting before, after testimonials, things of that nature, and tagging each other in it, because that doesn't even cost anything for you to do a testimonial, to take a before and after picture, tag your teammate in it, because now it's not just on your feed, it's on their feed too. And if you have a team of 6 salespeople to however many salespeople, if you guys are all tagging each other, one, there's a couple of things here. One, it's showing up on everybody's feed. It's showing up on their friends' feed, their family's feeds, and it's helping the algorithms. But it also helps with your culture of your team working in sync, like we were kind of talking about, rowing in the same direction. So if you can get everybody kind of just tagging each other, and then maybe like rassing each other, like, hey, we didn't see one, you didn't close one today, or something like that, it creates what I call a healthy competition amongst your team too. That's more of a camaraderie, fellowship type of competition amongst each other, because let's face it, we're all competitive to a certain extent, right? And hopefully not where it's more of an ignorance, arrogant type of competition, but we're all competitive, especially in sales and things like that. So if you're not creating some form of healthy competition atmosphere, culture type of atmosphere, then that too can also hurt lead generation, culture, attitudes, and things like that.
We do it all the time at Rhino. Like, we want each other to win, right? Like, I was so happy yesterday. I don't know if you got to see Mike Venita speak from our company. Like, he killed it yesterday. Like, main stage, he was early on in the day. He brought what I was proud of, so much education for roofers, like stuff they don't even have to pay for that they could do. And like, we're tagging each other, like we're happy for each other. So it is creating that culture of like, man, I want to go do something, right? But we really believe that at our company, like, rising tides raise all ships, right?
Absolutely.
So it was super exciting to see him. That was his first main stage that he's done, especially in roofing, and he just crushed it yesterday.
That's
I was
awesome.
like so proud of him.
Yeah, that's good. That's exciting too. And your team gets excited. And believe it or not, this podcast has helped our culture because right now, if anyone's watching, it's probably most of our team watching this, and if we would do a shout out, or they're just proud of like, hey man, that's our guy up there, man, and he's talking to Jeff with Rhino right now. Do you know what I mean? So it many forms of social media
Yeah.
can help. Plus homeowners, like you were speaking earlier, I don't know how many times I've heard our sales team, like, like the homeowner said they're subscribed to your YouTube channel, Ty, and it's like the things that you're talking about. So having heard that enough times, I have tried to clean up my vocabulary a little bit, but I mean, sometimes it is what it is. It's raw, it's live, and it's uncut.
Yeah.
And I think most people more so are acceptable or apathetic or whatever. It's like, okay, yeah, you dropped the F on, but unfortunately, this is what you get. Whether I'm over there talking to you at your booth or we're on camera right now, I'm as authentic as we can possibly be, and what you see is what you get. So if you're going to buy from us, this is what you're getting.
That's
from
it.
us. We're fully transparent.
We talk about that at Rhino a lot. Like I'm not a cursor by nature, but we have a couple people, right? But they understand, right? Sometimes when you're up on stage, you got to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
I know you had Eric on the program earlier. I saw yesterday, like he ain't toning anything down.
No.
What you see is definitely what you get. And again, that's going back to the brotherhood. Like we all understand each other. Like people come from different places, but I think that's what makes us great is we're all different.
For sure. Well, I think that's what your 15
I'm
minutes.
Good, man.
You're good.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, Jeff, it's always a pleasure.
Ty,
Yes.
super appreciate it, man. I love watching you guys on social media. I love seeing your posts. I love seeing Kenny's posts, and he's in the South Carolina-ish area, right? Love seeing him. And you're right. Like I feel like I'm a part of the TC Backer family because I just see you guys post all the time.
Yes, thank you. And we what we should do is not wait so long to have conversations like this.
Let's do it. I was just telling one of the other vendors, Dave Carroll from Dope. I'm like, man, we see each other all the time. Let's not wait like until the next show. So I'm going to reach out to you. I'm going to make it a point. We'll do something. We'll jump on a meeting. We'll talk.
Yes. And we only live about 3 hours.
I know, man.
Max.
Maybe a little golf somewhere.
I'm down.
I'm down.
Cool. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for watching us. Stay tuned.
Brother, appreciate it, man.
You got it.
That was awesome.
For sure.